Good evening, everyone. Good evening and a warm welcome to everyone joining the webinar today of the National Startup Awards 4.0 on creating new frontiers for technology in the startup ecosystem. Startup India has launched the fourth edition of the National Startup Awards to recognize and reward outstanding startups. This year, we have awards spanning across 20 categories, with the category also named Aero Innovate, which will specifically focus on aeronautics and aerospace innovators. The winners of the awards will receive a cash prize of INR 10 lakhs, and the winners and finalists both will receive exclusive handholding support in the form of government, investor, and market access. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome this panel today of Skyroot Aerospace, Bellatrix Aerospace, and Dhruva Space, who have been National Startup Awards winners and finalists in the past. They'll be talking about their incredible growth journey in a hope that it motivates you all as well. So today we have Mr. Pawan Kumar, the co-founder of Skyroot, which is one of India's leading private aerospace manufacturer and commercial launch services providers. We also have Mr. Yashas, who's COO of Bellatrix Aerospace, an Indian space company specializing in new age technologies for in-space mobility. And finally, completing this panel is Mr. Chaitanya Dora, CFO of Dhruva Space, which is a Hyderabad-based space tech company focused on building full-stack space engineering solutions. I want to thank all three of you for taking out the time today and joining us. Your journeys are very inspiring, and I hope our startups will get to know you a little bit better today. I would also like to mention that we'll be taking questions by the audience towards the end of the webinar. So, the audience, please feel free to put your questions in the chat box. And we can begin now. So, welcome to the discussion. Starting with you, Pawan, I would like to ask you how has your experience as a rocket engineer in the Indian space program influenced your approach in building Skyroot Aerospace? And can you also share some specific insights or lessons learned that have helped you in this journey?
Yeah. So, in fact, I joined, like you mentioned, I joined ISRO in 2012, per se. 2000, and for 6 years I was there, and that journey really had a great influence overall. In fact, I got the opportunity to work in one of the leading launch vehicle development there, which is called the GSLV Mark III, which is going to launch Indian astronauts soon into space as well. So I had the opportunity of to participate in the first couple of launches and in the last leg of the development of the vehicle. And also during that time, also ISRO had there was a failure of PSLV, one of the missions, after almost several successes, almost 36, 37 successes, and then there was a failure, which was also like a big jolt to see that continuously there was successes for a long period of time, and suddenly there's a failure, and that literally jolted the entire organization at that time. So it was a great journey to see how ISRO has come back, as an entire team through that, and also to see great missions like JSLV Mark III, etc., come through. So this experience actually taught, I would say, humility in rocket science. Anything can happen, go wrong at any time. So you need to be pretty cautious in everything we do. Attention to detail is very important, and that particular journey and the overall 6 years at ISRO really helped in shaping the foundation for Skyroot as well, where we are a startup. Absolutely, there was very difficult to get talent in the private sector, very difficult to get capital, very a lot of more challenges beyond the tech per se, and in handling those challenges, and additionally the deep technology challenges together was a major challenge over the last 5 years. And so that journey as a rocket engineer at ISRO really helped in the tech foundations of it, and that really resulted in also, if you see, last year we have done our first launch, which is a suborbital launch to space, and it was like a first time success as well. That kind of reliability has been built in the team and the mindset of the people here, and also within the founding team here. So that journey really translated into this kind of mindset, which led us to up to now. But of course, still, like I mentioned, it taught us a lot of humility, and that's where we want to be very cautious in what we do going forward as well, so that we can see consistent successes, and also build one leading launch vehicle company from India for the world. Yeah, thanks.
Great. Thank you, Pawan. So, Yashas, the next question I have for you is that Bellatrix has been actively involved in the development of cutting edge space technologies. The question is that how do these advancements contribute to achieving more sustainable and efficient satellite operations? And what impact do you anticipate these technologies will have on the space industry as a whole?
Thanks, Shubham. I think here, Bellatrix, I think we are looking at our nature of business as something that is going to enable the satellite ecosystem in India and the globe. So, in that sense, I think we are building technologies which help satellites move from one orbit to another and maintain their orbital life throughout their entire lifetime, and to actually do these more efficiently compared to what technologies are already available. So towards that, I think we have been working on complete homegrown innovation, starting from the component and subcomponent level. I mean, starting from the grassroots, as we can call it, right? So we have been trying to do that, and we have got a strong R&D team which has now capability to do some of these products at classes that everybody across the world has known to accept. So I think our focus has always been on that. And as of today, as we speak, we are also working on higher verticals in terms of vehicles that can go and do custom last mile delivery of satellites to orbit. For example, we can ride on somebody like Skyroot and then help some of these satellites reach to their final precise orbits. We are in fact working together there. And on the propulsion side, in fact, we are working with Dhruva in terms of helping some of their satellites maneuver, and we are also working them on getting some of those parts for our space taxi. So that's generally in brief, but I think our technologies are rather enabling a more cost-effective access to space.
Got it. Got it. It's great to see collaboration between Indian space tech startups already. So thank you for that answer, Yashas. Chaitanya, coming to you, your startup Dhruva Space is focused on enabling organizations to harness the potential of small satellites. Could you share some examples or use cases where small satellites have made a significant impact in various industries? And how do you envision the future of small satellites and their role in shaping the landscape of space exploration and communication technologies?
Absolutely. Just to begin with, I think it's you don't see it, but you use satellites everywhere today, right? So, okay, GPS is much larger satellites, but without GPS, a lot of stuff just won't happen. Now, the smaller satellites are enabling a lot of new these things. So, you primarily have two things that your satellites do. One is Earth observation, and second is communication. So, if we are looking at communication, we are looking at IoT services that are being provided by the small satellites, and these in turn help you track your ships. You have expensive goods that are being carried in areas where you do not have terrestrial network, which is quite a bit of the earth, by the way. Over there, you're going to track your goods, and of course the basic messaging, and in remote areas communication is very key, be it for defense, right? So you have your defense folks working in extremely remote areas in grueling conditions, and you can even track the animals, understand their migratory pattern. So yeah, it's just a very wide array of things that can be done by using small satellites. So now across the world, a lot of countries are doing it now. Even private companies have been doing it. Now I think it's the inflection point where we're looking at Indian companies start to do that. So thanks to the more recent policy that's come out and more enabling that's been happening across the board, we are looking at everyone, even India, catching up, or hopefully we will be one of the leaders in providing services from space.
Right. Thank you, Chaitanya. As you also mentioned, for GPS, even India has come up with their own indigenous navigation system of Navic, which is going to play a pivotal role in the coming years. Yes. So thank you, Chaitanya. Following up on that, Pawan, how do you see technology playing a pivotal role in creating new frontiers for startups? In your opinion, what are some of the most promising technological advancements that have the potential to revolutionize the startup landscape, particularly in the context of space exploration and access to space?
Yeah, so I think technology has space technology is like more about very very deep technologies, not like traditional way of technology. In fact, if you see the product development cycles also in the space sector, it is like several years. Some even go to decades as well. Definitely, I think what we see is that in fact at Skyroot our mission is to open space for all, and we are probably very long way, few decades away to literally open space for everybody where for example the applications which Chaitanya told would probably reach everybody across the population, and then a lot of in-space economy which Yashas mentioned about also will be bustling. Not only economy will be based out of Earth but also like beyond Earth as well. And then like Bellatrix has been doing like really good work beyond once getting into orbit, and also like in space transportation and beyond as well. So there's a lot of frontiers in space, and technology development is like extremely intense and also like very deep, and also like sometimes it can take decades to develop. I see that in the future, I think one of the critical technologies which will enable it, all this entire journey would be reusable launch vehicles. Because today, most of the launch vehicles are expendable. That means, like, in fact, you launch the rocket and the rocket falls in the sea, and then the payload has to pay for the entire rocket which fell in the sea, literally. So that makes it extremely costly. And in fact, like, if to just put a kilogram into space, it costs like several tens of thousands of dollars today. So that's needs to change, and the only way to change that is by reusing the vehicle. Just like our aircraft today, we're able to afford travel from anywhere with just like few less than $1,000. For example, that is because the aircrafts are used for thousands and thousands of times. For 35 years and plus, right? So that's one technology. When rockets push to that level of reusability, I think the cost to get into space becomes so low cost, and it becomes so accessible to everybody, and that will see phenomenal change in the space sector, and also phenomenal change in transforming our lives. Because we get more space-based services than what we have today. So without space today, we cannot live, even though the access to space is very limited and very expensive. So just imagine a time when access to space becomes so low cost and so reliable, and also like probably most of the people will be having a holiday in space, and then coming back, it becomes a pretty norm. So I think the reusable vehicle technology will be the one of the key critical technologies for enabling a very vibrant space ecosystem. And number two would be, I think, would be a very healthy space exploration, technology development by the governments, specifically for human space exploration. Like for example, staying in space for a very long duration of time is a very very important thing for pushing the limits beyond Earth. For example, living in habitats around Earth, or like living in Moon, Mars, habitat in Moon, Mars, etc., etc. So the next frontier is like expansion beyond Earth, and that's where like technologies for human survival long enough in space, and the technologies around that, the habitats, and for example, even the medicine, biomedicine, like for enabling humans to stay for a very long period of time, surviving gravity, artificial gravity technologies in space, etc., etc. So these will. So one thing is getting into space cheaper. Second thing is to have very long-term sustainable atmosphere in for living in space, and research in space, etc., etc. I think these two are the key technologies will take it to the next level. And of course, we are as we all will be probably be engaging this particular ecosystem in some way or the other in the next 10 to 15 years, and it'll be very exciting times in the future for space. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you, Pawan, for that answer. I'm sure space tourism definitely sounds exciting to everybody. Yes. Yashas, now in the context of the webinar's theme, creating new frontiers for technology in the startup ecosystem, what challenges do you foresee for startups in the space industry? Based on your experience, what key factors should entrepreneurs consider when navigating the space sector, and how can they effectively leverage technology and innovation to gain a competitive edge?
So that's a pretty interesting question. So I think the major challenge for the space sector, I would say, as of today, I mean, I'm talking about the Indian context right now, is actually to be building something which is very different and standing out from what all other companies are doing. So I think if you were to look at it in 2015-16, I think there were not really many private companies, and then there was a lot of scope for companies to come in and build their own ventures. But I think as of today, if you look at every major sector in the space tech area, there is already one Indian company or two in some cases, where these companies are already building on something cutting edge, and they've already got to a certain point of say technological credibility, right? So they have already been there, and they have gone through that journey, and they've established something. So I think from if you were to start a new company, and if you were to just replicate the same model, I don't think there is space for such models here right now in India. And that kind of gives you room for many other new ideas and many other new solutions. But at the same time, the challenge is really that space tech sector is one that doesn't like immediately grow to a point where you have the complete space infrastructure based business immediately ready in the next 10 years or next 5 years, for example. Then I wouldn't say that it is not possible. I mean, there's still a chance for that. But I think we are talking about today and not 10 years down the line for some of these businesses. So it makes a lot of, I mean, it adds to a lot of complexity or challenge in terms of strategies of companies to come up with very innovative technologies and innovative business ideas rather than redoing the same thing. They come up with something very innovative and it is too ahead of their time. I don't think there would be business feasibility for such plans. Say you're building for something in the area of in-orbit manufacturing. Yes, there is scope for it, and you really have to build it. But I think within the next 5 years or next 7 years, are you going to earn your bread and butter, or maybe even in 10 years, are you going to be profitable? No, you would not be profitable in the next 10 years. But it's definitely a technology that India should really look at. So I think it kind of comes to keeping that balance of something that gives you revenue right now, and at the same time building something which really is required and which is going to drive the industry in the next 15 years. So I think companies should really look at such a combination of technologies when they're building businesses. I think that is pretty important. And then on the other side, it's also with regard to capital. So as a startup, you cannot really show proof of concept without any venture capital money, and it's pretty hard to work with banks to get loans. Or I mean, you can't also just say that you are going to work on, say, defense orders or something like that, because I think there would be certain timelines associated with these, and you will have to get certain milestones and deliverables, and you will have to also ensure that all the payments also reach your bank account on time. So within this entire process, there could be a valley of death where companies can't meet those runways in between. So a need for venture capital is there, and this is not an industry where just angel funding would be sufficient. So you would need a lot of money. So I think all of these have to come together. So those I feel are like the major challenges. I think the new companies have to keep in mind.
Got it. Thanks, Yashas. Uh, uh, Now, coming to a more specific area within space, Chaitanya, can you mention some challenges faced when developing products and services in areas such as small satellites, SATCOM technologies, sensors, and connected devices? And what would you suggest on how to overcome these challenges and drive more innovation in these specific areas?
So I think the first point, I'll just continue with where Yashas kind of left off, in the sense that we did not have any capital for failure, right? So when I'm saying that I want to go innovate, there should be that capital where I say that, okay, I will try this out. It works, beautiful. It doesn't work, then okay, I can live with it. Unfortunately, at least when we started out, I'm sure like same with Bellatrix and Skyroot, we didn't have that capital that I can allocate saying that I'll this thing. So, but I think we've kind of swam through that. But for the upcoming startups, if they can raise and keep that aside, that will certainly help them in being more bold in doing that. That is number one. And number two, it is necessary to identify the pockets of technology that are actually needed, right? So one other thing, that identification itself is a challenge for a lot of companies, because you need to understand the whole ecosystem very deeply. And now you start your company, you have an investor sitting, okay, what are you guys doing? Like, what's the progress? So you're not going to take that time out and say that, okay, I've done this, this much of analysis on the market. So that is one of the challenges, that people need to identify what the particular problem they're solving is, and the market size for that problem needs to be established. Because you might say that, yes, there is a particular technology in US. So it still makes sense for you to build that technology in India. If you're doing it it might be very similar in terms of performance, but it's cheaper, or you're manufacturing it faster. That needs to be built. So identification of these items and capital failure, especially in the tech where we are, that is important. And number two, I think this is where all the three startups here will be contributing a lot, is that, again, now we are talking about services from space, right? So you want to put out maybe 10 satellites, 100 satellites, 1,000 satellites, and say that this is the service I'm providing. So for you to develop all the technology in-house, for you to say that I will build a rocket that is efficient and cheap enough that my satellite constellation is going to make financial sense or commercial sense, or saying that I need to build my satellites or a satellite bus and the whole line so that it makes commercial sense. And now my maneuverability of my satellite needs to be, all this takes a lot of time and capital. So in a funny way, the startups sitting in here are going to help this set of next and upcoming companies that are looking to provide services from space, in the sense that we can enable you to put the satellites out there, and because again, data or the service is the business that these companies are doing. So they can focus on it while we provide the infrastructure support.
Got it. Thank you, Chaitanya, for that answer. Now, coming to Yashas, I want to ask that initiatives like National Startup Awards create a network for startups to connect. How important do you think it is for startups to compete in such a space like space tech while learning from each other simultaneously?
No, I mean, I got a little confused with the question. The question was like anything to do with how startups have to be competitive with regard to the award, or in general, right? Because you brought in the award and the competition part.
No, in general, how important is for them to compete and then network and connect with each other in a space like space tech, which will maybe enable them to learn from each other and then build simultaneously.
See, I think within the space tech ecosystem here in India, if there are like two companies doing the same thing, the way I think at least we people are looking at it is, I mean, we are all friends. We interact with each other very often, and when we are talking about business and we are talking to customers, we just go and give them the offering that we do as a company. Say, company X offers certain thing and company Y offers a certain other thing in the same area. We both talk to the customers and have our own competitive edge in terms of the product offering itself, in terms of pricing. We kind of keep it very professional and leave it to the customer to decide on who they have to really go with. We are all in the same space. It's like we are in the same pond, and there are so many fishes, so many big fish and so many small fish. So everybody's out for hunting. So we look at our own food, right? So it's not that we look at competition as trying to pull the other one down. So I think that's probably the best way to look at it, given that space tech is a very small ecosystem, and we all need to work with each other. And there could be a lot of solutions where you and your competitor might have to team up to actually build a solution. Who knows? Right? I think that is the way it has been. There is nobody regulating this, but I think all of us have kind of coming to such consensus. And there are also a lot of industry forums. For example, there is something called Space Fed, where all the three of us are working. And I think these kinds of agencies kind of bring us all together. So it's a good ecosystem out here to be a space tech. And I think coming to the awards part, I think the National Startup Award, at least for all the three of us here, in the first edition, we were the winners, and it has really got us a lot of head start in terms of reaching out to the common public and in terms of every common man trying to understand what this sector offers, right? So until then, people did not have that perspective of there are so many space tech companies. Now, probably aspiring students who would want to come and work with us know that we exist and they would at some point of time be following us and apply for jobs here. So that way, it's a good thing. And also at the national level, it kind of gave us visibility with various ministers and various secretaries who are also decision makers and who can really help us propel to the next level. And I also kind of feel that to some extent it has also helped in some of these like senior officials within the government also take this sector very seriously and then prioritize the space policy which came to India. So that way, I think this kind of national recognition is very important for any sector to come up, and I think this National Startup Award really has done that for us.
Right, right. That makes total sense. Thanks a lot, Yashas, for that answer. Coming to Pawan, like you had already mentioned, the vision of opening space for all is at the core of Skyroot's aerospace mission. How do you plan to achieve this vision, and what role do you believe startups in technological innovation can play in democratizing space exploration?
Yeah. So to start with, as I mentioned, our mission is to open space for all. Of course, it's a very grand, big, long-term mission. So we take it step by step. So the first step is, we want to open space for as many small satellites as possible and those applications, which these small satellites can bring. I think that is the next big revolution. I think small sat revolution is the next big revolution where, probably today you can build a satellite for just 5 kilograms, 10 kilograms, and photograph Earth at, 3 meter resolution. And, you can provide communication for IoT devices across the globe, et cetera, et cetera. I think the phenomenal applications which small satellites bring. And yesterday, years ago, it used to take millions of dollars, several tens of millions of dollars, and a very large satellite to do the same thing which today's satellites do. So first step for us towards our mission to open space for all is to go as much as possible with the small satellites. That's where, like, we are building Vikram series of vehicles tuned only for the small satellite sector. And 80% of the satellites which are going to come in the next decade will be small satellites, and they will be literally, giving services for people never imagined before. That is really going to definitely transform life, than before. Even for example, now satellites even help in India. Satellites even help fishermen to identify the right shoals of fish, and saves several thousands of crores in fuel. Right, and there's several commercial applications also which will start coming, both in communications and Earth observation, which is going to transform our lives in different ways. So that is the first step we're going to take, and beyond that, so this is going to take like a few years for us to completely operationalize and start launching small satellites for the sector. And we our goal is to be one of the leading players globally in launching small satellites. And once we get there and operationalize, which itself is a very big challenge in itself. And in fact, like, we are also want to launch our Dhruva space and Bellatrix satellites, as an Indian ecosystem. It would be great to have an Indian launcher launching payloads and satellites built by indigenously by other Indian startups. It builds a great ecosystem as well as a country for us. And so that is the first step which we're going to take, to open space as much as possible to small satellites, which is going to revolutionize in a great way to give space-based services to a majority of people. And then beyond that, we want to also, like, push the technology beyond the existing launch vehicle technology we are building, and make it so cost effective, with reusability, and whether building cutting edge technologies in a way where, like, the cost to get into space becomes so low that opens up even further, so, and to be even much further, where, like, probably it can open up new frontiers, like, space tourism, new frontiers, like, probably launching huge satellite constellation at very, very low cost. And that will open space for even beyond what it was can be in the next few years. And that is where I think true transformation and true opening space for all happens. And one big problem to solve is the cost to get into space, which is like today quite expensive, and it will probably is going down, but still will remain expensive for a few years. But once this technology transformation happens, and we get there, and that would literally be an open road to space, where we get to space at very very reasonable cost. And of course, people will build allied technologies, or like complementary technologies for like low cost in space propulsion systems, and very reliable in space propulsion systems, which what Bellatrix is aiming to do, and the spacecrafts which Dhruva Space is aiming to build, and several other startups across the country and the globe building for this. So it forms a very good space economy, and with generating revenues and reasonable cash flows to invest on new technologies further, etc., etc. And with this journey of cutting down costs, slashing down costs to get into orbit, I think will be truly reaching our mission of opening space for everybody. So it's a pretty long way, but we'll take it step by step to achieve it in a very reliable way, and in a way that we get reasonable revenues, sustain ourselves along the journey is the biggest challenge, I would say. Yeah, thanks.
So,
Shubham, you are on mute.
We can't hear you. Yeah.
yeah, thanks, Pawan, for the answer. Now, coming to Chaitanya, because space technology is often perceived as a highly specialized and technologically complex industry and sector. We again wanted to talk about collaborative efforts in terms of tech transfer between Indian startups, so for that matter, from global startups as well, about upcoming and developing technologies and how to take that forward.
It's actually kind of funny that space industry has been held at such a high threshold, saying that it's so hard, that it took me like almost 2-3 years later that when someone actually asked me that question, that okay, I'm actually in a proper space tech company where it is that hard. But anyway, coming back to the point, yes, space industry is a little complex and daunting. Obviously, the technology aspect and building the technology is a little hard, but you should also take into consideration the business that goes around it. Because without a business case, I mean, your business case can be as far out as saying that you're going to mine in moon and get the resources from there to produce energy. Doesn't make sense in the next 5 years. Doesn't make sense in the next 10 years. Could probably make sense in 20 years, right? So now if you're looking at such long-term goal, you do need someone to back you on it, number one, and someone to take you through this journey where you can do incremental steps. So again, coming to we, at least in Dhruva Space, our focus has always been that we need to start generating revenues right from day one, because tomorrow I cannot be like, I can't be completely dependent on investor money or something else, because something goes wrong, economy is bad, and I can't say that. Sure. So we've always looked at alternatives where whatever we're building for space, do they have applications on Earth? How can we monetize some of it? Very small amount we have managed to, realize with that thought process, but it certainly helped us in our, growth in refining things a bit more. So it all comes down to, you might have like a very lofty hard goal, but it's an incremental step by step. How do you reach there, and what are you developing to reach there? I think, sorry. So that was one part of the question. I missed the second part. Can you?
The second part was about collaborating in terms of technology transfers and to achieve a product goal of the space industry.
So again, ISRO has done some fantastic stuff, right? So they've done all these missions to Mars, Moon, at like fraction of cost that people are doing anywhere else in the world. So there is good amount of technology that's there. And now with the new policy, government is also willing to do some technology transfer from ISRO. So again, doesn't make sense for you to build everything from scratch. So that way, ISRO has been a good starting point where you can rely on them, or use the proven technology. You might need to modify the technology for scalability, but that's a good start. And also, there's been a lot of, I think all three of us spoke about how we are trying to collaborate with each other, and that's broadly across the board, within the country and even internationally. There are a lot of programs where, uh, you know, uh, across the countries are providing you with various grants, etc. If you're collaborating with a different country on some specific these things. So yes, without collaboration, it's not possible to move forward, and doesn't make sense to reinvent the wheel. Always, there's a base. Now start building on top of it. So I think it's a good thing, or at least for it's a good environment that we are in right now in Indian space industry. That it's more collaborative in most sense. I don't think it's not like we're not trying to poach from each other. We're not trying to outcome. I mean, we want to compete in a very fair fashion. That is very good wherever there is, but a lot of collaboration that happens, and all. I'm sure everyone is happy to have more people, because again we are a very small, very niche sector. So always happy to have more people around.
Got it. Good. That makes sense. Thanks for that answer, Chaitanya. Uh, Coming to Yashas now, I wanted to ask, following the latest trend of artificial intelligence and machine learning, how do you see AI impacting the sector and its use cases?
Well, I think I mean, it's an open field to kind of go in and explore a lot of opportunities. So I wouldn't say that the current latest trends in the AI that is happening, that we are currently seeing, they would directly be kind of used in the space industry, but there are a lot of other operations which can be seen where AI could come in. For example, I think, I mean, one of the nearest one is in terms of some amount of predictive analysis, right? So based on satellite data that you get, we are doing analysis, a lot of analytics is happening. So can we build AI models on top of that and do more accurate predictive analytics at the source itself, right? So you get the final output, like you get a very simple, easy to ingest data that everybody can directly make sense of. So that was one, and then for some sort of missions and control algorithms where some sort of autonomous operations need to happen in space, in orbit. So some of the tech that is happening in the autonomous driving could probably help propel these satellites in different orbits autonomously. So these are not some things that today are a mandate, as in like if you don't have autonomous satellites, you really cannot work and you cannot extract value out of satellites. But I think we are moving towards automating some of these things, because once we are done with that, there are a whole gamut of new applications which might come up. So that way, I think it is inevitable for AI to also enter space. And then the kind of opportunities is, as of today, we can probably count them maybe like 20 to 50 opportunities. But I think once people come in and they start building solutions, I think the number of applications that we can think of could just multiply. So I think there is definitely a lot of scope. At Bellatrix also, we already have a AI team working on some interesting problems, and I'm sure all the other space tech companies have also started.
Got it. Got it. Thanks, Yashas. These were all the questions that we had from our end. So thank you all for sharing your thoughts. I know the audience would love to also know more about your experience with the National Startup Awards and the Startup India initiative at large. A lot of them might also be wondering about applying for the awards itself. And you are an exemplary example of the kind of startups who emerge as winners in the awards. So I would like to have you all share your thoughts on this. So I'd like to start with Chaitanya on how your experience journey has been through the National Startup Awards.
So I highly recommend people to apply to the awards. I think getting through the process itself was very useful, in the sense that we've had some exceptional people, interviewers, during the whole process. And putting in the application, trying to answer the question also does that bit of exploratory thing within yourself, so that you can zero in better on what you're trying to do. And once we've been through the whole grind and we've actually got selected, that was one pretty gives you an extra boost of confidence that certainly you'll carry forward. Two, that's something that you again, imagine you're a startup. You're going and talking to investors to raise money, or you're going and talking to potential customers and saying that this is what I have, this thing. So again, Startup India, the awards are pretty prestigious, and that will actually give you a leg up in saying that, yes, I have this. So this is the kind of validation I have. So that's a good starting point. And also, the journey has helped us in spaces very pretty highly regulated, right? So it is important for us to talk to a lot of government, bureaucracy, etc. And one, at least DPIIT, Startup India has enabled a lot of conversations that we wanted to have. Otherwise, the particular bureaucrat would have said, if I approached directly there, he would have said, okay, maybe I'm too busy. But because Startup India has made that introduction, they've given us their time. And that certainly helped us learn a lot of things and also get a lot of things moving. Thank you.
Got it. Thanks, Chaitanya. Over to you, Yashas. You did mention a little bit about the awards, how your journey has been. So over to you.
Yeah. So I think this was probably one of the best and the most rewarding awards and recognitions that we have got so far. We have, in fact, made a lot of applications, won a lot of awards, but I think this one seemed quite. This one did feel very good to kind of go through the entire process. So from the time you applied, it was not really a very complicated application, and then it did not eat away a lot of your time, which is also a good thing for an entrepreneur because you have 100 things to do. So I think from there, I think there were a couple of rounds of selection at this thing, and then the final jury. I think we were all very happy to look at the quality of the jury, as Chaitanya just mentioned. So I think in that sense, we kind of felt that the assessment was very fair, and then that also gives you that fulfillment, right? So you did apply among hundreds of applicants, and then you were finally shortlisted for the award after all these processes, which also gives you some sort of validation. And looking at the quality of jury, you feel that kind of pride in taking that award. So I think till then, we were not really sure of what else we would get apart from probably the award and the prize money. But I think after we got the award and the whole announcement happened, I think we were all in for a surprise because they had never announced the kind of support infrastructure and the kind of programs that would come in later and the kind of outreach that would come in. So we were all really surprised because months and months after getting the award, also various government departments were reaching out to us. We had a show, a huge one on DD National, and I think I still remember the amount of time that the DD National team spent on getting the whole show running. So they were probably coordinating and talking to us for months and months, and then there was a show in Delhi where. Chairman of ISRO was actually invited to come in and participate and then express his opinions. And before the show, there were teams from DD who had come into our offices, spoken to some of our stakeholders, some of the people who were impacted by our tech. So they had taken in a lot of effort to make a complete profiling of Bellatrix, and they have kind of ensured that these are shown to even the remotest corners of the nation multiple times. So these are repeated multiple times. So the kind of outreach we got there was also immense, and also there were events where they were trying to also link us with some of the investors who are interested to invest in the sector. There were also a lot of information sessions. They were trying to also do some tie up with some of the US companies. So they were also trying to educate us on the US market entry, something on the IP. So overall, in terms of all the things that startups do require, I think we had this handholding support for over a year after getting the award, and this was never announced. So you are very happy when you get something bonus, right? So this is not something. This is a lot of things which came in bonus after the award. So that way, I would really say that this was one of the best awards we have got and the best kind of support and infra that like the handholding we have got after the awards, we really strongly recommend everyone to take part in this and do your best and get the winner tag.
Thank you, Chetan. It's nice, Yashas. It's nice to hear that. Pawan, if you would also want to tell us about Skyroot's NSA journey.
Yeah, I think both Chaitanya and Yashas have fairly told the right points. So basically, I feel like for any startup there are like three major things required. One is the capital, especially in the space sector. One is capital. Second is the right talent, and third is the spirit, the winning spirit, to which will bind both. Utilize the capital well and use the talent well and achieve great things, right? So all these three things, I think, our National Startup Awards will give good bounce to, because it's coming. It's a very credible national award. In fact, looking at the jury, I didn't expect such a great jury. The moment we went to the jury, I got a call saying in the morning, like, there's a jury coming. I was thinking, oh, this is okay, the award function, and after attend a jury, probably, I think all of us received it, very well in time, and we were thought like, okay, there's one more jury which is happening, and then once we entered, I see Dr. Somnath, and I see like, Jesse Thomas, madam, and all these great stalwarts in this field coming onto the jury, asking the right set of questions, and getting selected to it. After the jury, I felt like, definitely I think we should get selected. That's increased our thing to get selected because of the kind of credibility that the jury had. And so that way, I think it gives a lot of credibility once you get selected for a national award, National Startup Award, being the apex award for startups in the country. I think it will give us great credibility for getting the capital required, get the comfort among the investors that these are the chosen few startups, which have it in them, which have done good amount of work, which is very interesting, which is this thing, that particular part which will help the investors to also get some comfort. And also, like, a lot of people, I've also observed that being a national awardee also gives credibility among talent. Now more and more talents are coming into the startups. Generally, most Indian people want to prefer to go for an MNC job, or high paying look for high paying opportunities in different exotic fields, and or like in standard fields like finance or IT, etc. But getting the credibility that, okay, this is a national awarding startup, even though startup is a national awarding company, so I'm applying for this company and getting it. It gives some credibility for them to probably explain it to their parents, etc., especially for freshers, etc. Gives that credibility to get some good talent into the system as well. And third is it boosts the spirit of the entire team. When we know that you're a national awardee, you are among the 3 startups selected across the country, among the field, and also among the 30 startups across every field. That gives a good spirit that, okay, we are doing really well, and it's just the beginning for us, and probably we have to do much better in the future. So that spirit also gets boosted. So I think whatever ingredients a startup needs, probably we'll get all of them with the National Startup Awards. And I think very well designed, very well organized, and with the right amount of jury. And also, like Yashas mentioned, in fact, I was also surprised by the kind of post-award benefits, which I didn't expect that such benefits would have been there. But a lot of great interactions, even with, I know there were a lot of investor interaction sessions, there were a lot of interactions with the government officials, et cetera, et cetera. And whenever we need some connections in the government, the secretary was, kind enough to give the connections, set the right connections, see that the National Startup Award winners are successful. That's the kind of spirit even the team at National Startup Awards have, which was very useful, I would say, and created that kind of family kind of feeling among the National Startup Award winners. I think this is also like, overall, I say phenomenal journey for us, and strongly recommend anybody to apply. And also, like, it happens every year. So, even if it doesn't happen in 1 year, I think surely, I think the good amount of progress will be made in the coming year, and then you'll have a shot at it again. So it's very transparent awards as well in that sense as well. So I think it's a very good system to get on, and highly recommend all of them to apply. Yeah.
Thank you, Pawan, for sharing your journey.
Just
Finally, coming to the last part. Yes, please.
Yeah, like Pawan was saying, it helps. It's fancy to write Dhruva Space and National Startup Awardee as your introduction when you. So that helps.
And I think one important aspect is that we 3 are the first National Startup Award winners in the space, and all 3 of us are collaborating. I don't know whether any other sector, other startups all the winners were collaborating. And in fact, like when we were also called to Delhi for the show, in fact, we were discussing about collaboration opportunities as well. So I think that kind of collaboration also was very key with the National Startup Awards, I would say. So I think for the space sector point of view, I think it's a very good journey with the National Startup Awards. Yeah.
Yeah. As Pawan said, I still recall. I think during the show itself, Chairman ISRO that time was Dr. K. Sivan. He mentioned that people should collaborate and work together and build better things in India. I think in 1.5 months of that happening, we started discussing more seriously, and then we had MOUs exchanged on the same day together. So that did happen. Just I mean, this happened during the award related show, and then a few days from there we had signed.
Thank you all for sharing your journeys. Finally, coming to the questions by the audience, we have some questions. One of the questions is, do you see Indian space tech companies coming up with our own indigenous technologies which haven't been developed out there? And if yes, then how does the future look like? We can begin with anyone. Either of you.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I will just start out here. So, if you just Google about what each and every Indian space tech startup is doing, probably it will take you some time and effort to find out all the space tech companies, because now at least 100 plus companies are there. That's what I think we have been meeting a lot of people out there, and you try to understand what these companies are doing. So you would easily find out that there are companies which are highly ambitious and building out some of the products that like there are probably one company or two companies in the West are trying to do, or in some cases they're trying to do even something even better. And also, it's not just about the overall broad technology that we are talking about. It can also be innovation at the grassroots level, as I would like to call it. So, if you are building a rocket, there could be 10 new innovations or 10 new technologies you are incorporated into the rocket. You don't go out in public and say that you have made these 10 innovations, but you have done something for the first time and it has given you certain performance improvement. So I think at similar levels, even at satellites, even at propulsion systems, the orbital transfer vehicle that we are doing. So there are a lot of innovations that are trying to put all of our products better than some of the global competitors. And we, as Indian startups, we know that we are entering the market a little later than all the global players. So if you look at like private companies participating in the US and Europe, so they have been in the industry for several decades now, and they have all really learned the art of building these systems, and a lot of them came through a systematic handholding first, and then letting these companies build their own innovations. And in a lot of cases, people moved from these government agencies. So the scientists who built these products in government agencies like NASA and ESA, they took a early retirement and moved on to these companies and really helped them like build these kinds of technologies. So they've got that rich heritage, and we know that they have already built these products and they're already available in the market. For us to make a dent and have some business sense, we really know that we have to compete with all these existing solutions. At the same time, this is not an industry where people can really compromise on quality even a little bit. So we know the quality considerations also for global acceptance. And we also understand that the market for space tech exists outside India. So there is a local market, but probably it's less than 5%, but and 95% of our business would come outside India. So knowing all this, as startups, we are really building to kind of beat these technologies out there in the West and build technologies which are more innovative and also more frugal in terms of costing. So, with that being said, I'm very sure that if you look at all the companies out there and what we are building and try to deep dive into the kind of tech we are building, you would be sure that we are really at par or better. So that is what I would say. But I think at the same time, there is also another perspective out here in terms of availability of funding to fund some of the very disruptive technologies. So that is where I differ from whatever I told you right now. So for companies which are really building something 10 years down the line or 20 years down the line, there is funding available in the West, especially in the US. If you come to any other geography globally, India included, so there is not really that much of capital, both at the government orders level and at the private equity level. So that way, those kinds of innovations are happening, but they are very slow because you are building with very little capital, building some other business to really show revenue, and then use that to get more funding to really fund these kinds of disruptive tech. But I think the fire is there, and we are really working on it. It's only a matter of time by when we are going to do it. It would be a bit hard to kind of catch up and do it as fast as the West. But I think in terms of the capability and the innovation, we are really on track for it.
Got it. Makes sense. Thanks, Yashas. Uh, okay. Thanks for the answer. Finally, as we wrap up, I would like to extend my immense gratitude to all of our speakers on behalf of the entire Startup India team. It was a pleasure having you all today. Your insights were very informative and inspiring for all the startups and budding entrepreneurs across the country. Before we end this session, I would like to encourage all startups to apply for the National Startup Awards. This will be a great opportunity to showcase your innovative ideas and gain recognition for it. If you haven't already, please visit the Startup India website and register your startup today. We will now be playing a few videos which will help you understand how to fill the applications. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.